All right, well, welcome everybody. This is a conversation about creating a living library. And I want to credit Randy for kind of coining that term. We've been talking the last couple of days, couple of weeks about launching a human library, which is based on a concept out of Denmark. And I want to credit that initiative at humanlibrary.org. It's a really neat initiative. Um, Really, what that is about is encouraging people to have one-on-one conversations or small group conversations where hard questions are expected and welcome. And it's really intended to break stigma, really intended to kind of get past the assumptions. And my my logic in wanting to encourage time banks to create activity groups around this is that in the time bank that I'm associated with in Phoenixville, there's been a lot of concern about lack of exchanges. There's been concerns about legalities as well. You know, who's responsible legally if something doesn't go right in an exchange. So my intention is to start generating more relationship-based, relationship-driven exchanges, so that people can get to know each other before doing service-based exchanges. And it generates more hours and deepens the relationship and really creates solidarity. So I'll let everybody introduce yourself and just let us know what you would like us to know about you and what would you like to explore tonight? What is your intention for tonight? So I usually pass it after I do my introduction. So why don't I pass it to Randy? Randy, so what would you like to tell us about yourself and what would you like to learn tonight?
Well, goodness. Yeah. Thank you, first and foremost, Michael, for the invitation to be part of this wonderful conversation. Uh, as Michael pointed out, we've had, some thoughts shared on this, and I'm quite excited in the potential of this applying to an online community that I'm launching called Easier Ways. So, yeah, I'm the founder of this thing. I'm ready to start collaborations with a lot of wonderful people. And in all frankness, why I was late, I was in one of those conversations that just like, oh my God, this was an hour kind of thing. I got to go. Um, but yeah, for me, what I'm getting benefit out of this community is I'm connecting with wonderful people that have such wonderful gifts to bring forward that I may or may not be able to help other people, but this is helping me so much. Yeah, so the potential in if you easier ways learning community, having something like time banking done in an exchange of information, possibly one-on-one coaching or anything like of that nature, I think this has a huge potential for those that are so inclined to want to learn and may or may not be in a situation to afford the tuition, whether it be like a formal education like Harvard or whatever. But even, a lot of these online entrepreneurial programs and such too. Some of them can get pretty pricey as well. And I'm not here to say that they're not worth the money. I'm just saying that there's a lot of people that could benefit from it, but are not financially able to do this. So if I can connect people who have the skill set for these people to improve the quality of their life and do it through the means of something similar to what this living library is, then I think this has the potential to be an opportunity basically for anyone who desires it. Once we can get past the trust factor, that was the big thing there. And of course, the only way you ever get past, doubts and overcome objections is through time. And hence having a community that is inviting. Basically, the one rule is unsolicited advice is forbidden. You haven't asked for your help. Nobody's going to be telling you what to do. And that is frankly, if that's something you even want to argue about for 1 minute and stuff, it's not the right fit for you. This is a safe online space where people can eventually get to the point where they can let their guard down enough and at their level of personal development, be as vulnerable as they've ever have been in their life. And because again, it's not necessarily just expressing yourself, it's returning and it's coming back to you is what I'm getting at. And so this is a bit of an experiment. But I think once somebody is in that state where they can just again let down the guard of their intellect and opinions and just be present, they can practice what my friend Dave calls fearless vulnerability. And what Brene Brown talks about, that connection and stuff. That's the kind of things that I've had glimpses of before that I want to be intentional in creating with Michael and maybe with some of you as well. But yeah, to get a better understanding on time banking, how that would fit together, and really have again, I'm calling it a learning community, but really it would, to the best of my understanding, it would be a living library. So I want to see if my assumptions and understandings are correct and see how this can be applied.
Great, great. Thank you, Randy. Yeah, one of the things that I wanted to reflect back in just listening to that is trust. We did a 5 day kind of workshop sprint back in December. Charles was a part of that, and Chris Gray of timebanks.org was a part of that. And one of the things that emerged out of that was the need for establishing trust first. So I'm hearing that loud and clear, and that when you can relate to people human to human, where we're observing values and then getting to ideas and ideologies and strategies, there's more sustainability in those relationships. So that's one of the things that I'm hearing loud and clear from from a lot of your interactions. And I did watch your conversation yesterday online as well. So thank you. And I'm going to let you pass it to whoever you want next in the group.
Well, on my screen, the next person over is Tony. So,
Great.
Tony, could you please share a little bit?
Hey, hello, everybody. Delighted to be here. Thank you. You guys are pushing all my hot spots and buttons using words like time banking and solidarity and trust and learning. My goodness. Let me tell you a little bit about me. I worked in the auto parts factory for 40 years. I made it through high school and basically a laborer. And eventually I got into management. I had a good work ethic from my parents. And then I was terminated and sent back into the bargaining unit because I asked questions. And then the next 30 years, I became very active in the union. Eventually, I became a grievance writer and a negotiator and a real pain in the ass with General Motors from their point of view. I sued them 3 times and won 3 times. So the big lesson out of that was that solidarity was really just a name that was not really practiced. The concept of collective nature of collaborating, doing co-production, bottom-up organizing on the shop floor, unless it was a grievous major issue, like we had to bond together to strike or bond together to prevent some crazy thing happening at a Sunday union hall meeting, there was really no solidarity in terms of vision and mission. However, on the shop floor, there was this wild, informal, wonderful network. I don't care what you wanted to learn, do, or inquire or get help on, whatever the issue was. We had 14,000 members, men and women, in the union, and you could find an expert and the information you wanted. It was like a human encyclopedia. And after I retired, I missed that. I missed that informal resource, knowledge base of collaboration and networking. And I've been trying to find that ever since. Now, that was in 2004 when I retired. By the way, I'm 81.
Wow.
can't believe it. I was trying to add the numbers up and it didn't make sense.
Yeah.
Wow, God bless
I
you.
can't believe it either when I say that word octogenarian. I said, what the hell is that, you know? Anyhow,
Great.
I discovered, you know, I was always self-taught, and that's how I've gone through life. I got that from my parents. And so the point here is I came across time banking, Edgar Kahn and the five values. And I recognized that if I had that intellectual basis and the concept, the the methodology, I could have been an even better shop floor organizer. And so I turned myself into a community organizer and started a time bank in 2007. My wife helped me. She's a nonprofit manager in her career, and we started a nonprofit here. It's called Time Bank Mahoning Watershed. And if you hear a little bell going, that's my dog. He wants to go to the toilet, but he's gone now. He's just bored. He starts when he gets bored, he wants to go to the toilet. He doesn't want to go to the toilet. He just gets bored. It's so cold here. He hasn't been outside today. Anyhow, okay. So, yeah. So you know the story. COVID really hit time banking hard. We've lost a lot of participation. I lost almost a half a dozen members pass on. And it's tough now to get energy and exchanges going and support networks occurring in the database. And I've got about 140 members, but they're just fractured. They're just totally fractured. They're out of the habit of connecting. I think they feel burned out. They don't see wins in doing time banking here locally. And so I resorted to doing time banking online using Zoom in 2002. And it was a project I read about, became friendly with the fellow who passed away. But nonetheless, the idea is raising the value of learning, which harmonizes with what's going on here, using time currency in shared activities and recording people when they learn, and recording, you know, documenting their work time when they teach and when they collaborate. And so I've been doing that, and I have a session every Thursday. And it's difficult, I will say, because the idea of trust, risk taking, sharing yourself, opening yourself up to others is a big thing to achieve. It's easy to say community organizing, but it's it's a real complex issue. Okay, I'd like to pass this on now to Lori. And as they say on the old Star Trek show, number one, you've got the helm.
So, I was listening and I just want to just check with the first thing, am I paraphrasing first, like what he says? What he said to me?
Oh no, you can go right into your introduction. One of the things I just wanted to kind of just to kind of also sum up. I had a conversation with Tony a couple weeks ago, and he shared some resources with me about about really how to encourage change, how to change habits, and that's one of the things that I'm hoping to kind of encourage with these conversations as well too. Is we're kind of conditioned. We're conditioned to be very competitive and to make big things happen, and to to really try to incite a lot of like transactional brief relationships. But what the behavior change I would like to encourage is that there's a lot of power in the small groups like this and the one-on-one exchanges as we're taking the time to trust each other. So, one of the things that I'm hoping to explore with Tony as we go along as well is, these some of these findings, especially in academia, about how to help encourage a behavior change. So that's something I just wanted to kind of cap off what Tony said. And now I will pass it off to Lori. Lori, please feel free to tell us anything you want to about yourself. I have a lot to say about you as well when you are done. So go for it.
Great. So what a great segue to talking about bringing change to an organization and about learning. And I feel that I'm supposed to be with all of you at this time. It's part of my path. It's part of my journey. And I have been struggling with what do I do with my career of 30 plus years in the corporate world as a corporate training and developer, event planner, organizer, marketer, all these different roles, wearing all these different hats because I didn't thrive in that environment, no matter which organization I worked in. I always was a great trainer and a great documenter, but the politics, the competition made me physically and emotionally sick. And I have been searching, excuse me, I'm walking to let my cat out. Sorry, there's animal issues. So I don't want to make anyone throw up because you're following me. But I feel like my calling, one of my callings, one of my hats or halos, is to go back into my education, degree, and experience and beliefs. And this is the right environment. So I have a master's degree in adult education and corporate and organizational development. So to me, thank you, to me, and being an experienced teacher and documenter, one of the things that I like and being kinesthetic learner is working with Mike to learn more about this new socioeconomic system by taking notes of what he's saying and turning them into speaker's notes, which can eventually be standardized into training manuals and to tell other people about it, to make things easier. Because a lot of us, while we may support the idea, may not know what it is. It's also interesting to me as someone who has experience in organizational development, 30 years plus, it's always been top down. And the funny thing is, I do think the commons, the lowest point that that we consider the opposite, in this environment, we do really know what's going on. And so to be able to talk to other people and find people who we like, we know, we trust, and we're okay to be vulnerable with, scares me and excites me at the same time. So I feel like this group is bringing alive a part of me that was kind of dead for a while, a long time. And it scares me because it's taking me out of my kind of hermited mode for a while, even though everyone tells me I'm an extrovert. I swear I'm an introvert. So it's just, and I'm excited to see where we're going. And I'm excited that we all found each other. And so I'm bringing that enthusiasm with me, as well as my background of kind of lost. What do I do with it? I feel like now I know where to apply it. And I'm excited to meet all of you and introduce Charles. No, I guess she's the last person.
Great. Thank you. Before you go, Charles, yes, I do want to say a few things as well too. Lori has been a godsend for me. I'm really excited about her kind of taking my ideas and to put it in not just your words but also in others. Just kind of dumb it down. Because
you're so smart. You're so smart.
Thank you for that. I appreciate that. I've struggled with my self-esteem around my intelligence, but yeah, what we're exploring here are really different languages. And my conversation with Tony a couple weeks ago, what I had intended in communicating to the time banking network was speaking a language that I call kairotic flow, which was still, it's still a little bit out there. It's still a little bit in the realms of academia, but you're helping me, Lori, just kind of, bring it to a level where it's very accessible, very human, and and just kind of put it to work. What I'm hoping and what I'm intending is that these living libraries, where people are connecting on deeper levels, will be a gateway to time banking. And time banking is a gateway to reverse market mechanics, which is something that I've been writing about and I've been kind of putting out there, and Lori's helping me to kind of make that accessible. But I do believe that when the math and the economics are understood, we can transcend that hierarchy where we're working in a way that feels oppressive and that we're really working for somebody else's ego. But through reverse market mechanics and time banking, we can kind of level that playing field. But again, that's the behavior shift. That's really kind of taking the time to be with each other and understand it. So Laura, you are instrumental in that, and I want to thank you for being here.
Thank you. I enjoy doing it. It really, like I said, it really has brought me back to life and is helping me serve a purpose and then finding a purpose.
Yeah.
I thought it was the other way around, but I think it's the first way I said.
Right.
So so thank you. And now Charles, we didn't forget about you.
Nope, not at all. Go for it, Charles.
You're next.
Okay. Yeah, so I'm just curious about the living library and what it all means. It's all new to me. I'm always interested in deeper conversation, and I seem to find myself in places of in the weeds, as Brene Brown would say, of vulnerability. Um, it's kind of been a pattern in my life. I just kind of find what I don't even know those people. Well, show up anyway. And so I listen and I do, and I'm just kind of, most of the time always amazed at what comes out of these places that the spirit directs me. But I've never really been a person of communication. I've always we grew up in an atmosphere of you didn't say anything to your parents, and if there was anything to be said, it was usually in an argumentative kind of way, and I usually backed away. And then I started to find my kind of niche about, trying to communicate in a different way besides showing up angry or frustrated or feeling like, things didn't work or fit and I had, I never felt like I was really, I didn't have the skills that I needed to have conversation with people that was a deep kind of conversation. And I realized that part of that skill was learning how to trust. And I read a lot of books, but then I realized that you just had to be in the conversation and you had to start trusting. And a lot of that came from trusting myself. So I started there. And I kind of go with my gut feeling around things and around people. And I show up and I stick with it. I'm not one to kind of walk away anymore. That was my first 30 years, my first 40 years, however old I'm getting. And I saw that it was a different kind of living for me. And so when I started showing up, it started feeling like more of who I was. And even though I get put into these situations or I'm invited into these situations where I feel like, well, it wasn't really what I thought I kind of signed up for, it turns out to be very rewarding in a way of seeing yourself and how you grow into situations and how you learn through just experiencing different situations and experiencing people and finding people like Mike, like Lori, who I trust and I can kind of feel like I have a little bit of a tribe, that I can belong to. And I feel like for me, that's part of the key. You have to have some kind of small community because this kind of conversation and work is not, for me anyway, it's not done in isolation or, by yourself. So I'm looking forward to it and looking forward to, whatever it brings.
Yeah, thank you, Charles. I do want to say Charles has been instrumental in really kind of keeping a group honest, keeping us very honest. We So one of my intentions with having this conversation tonight as well too is because I would like to introduce the concept of a living library and a time bank to Circle of Miracles, which is the interspiritual community that we are involved in. And when you spoke a couple days ago at the What the Heck Was That event, Charles, talking about kind of the 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 intuitions and and kind of like the inspiration you got around the adoption of your son, that's a living library story. That is something that that is something that I think is worth exploring. So to me, when I think about this idea of having a living library, where people can ask hard questions, where people can really explore, some deeper topic matter. I think of you. I honestly think of you because that story you told, I think is incredibly valuable. I would love more people to hear that story. And with Circle of Miracles, I think there is a rich potential for starting a living library with a whole bunch of different topics, a whole bunch of different experiences. And what I would like to see happen there, and how we might be able to create and role model a living library, is to start to direct the conversation more towards those experiences, human to human, to deepen those relationships. So I'm glad you're here tonight, Charles, and I think we've got a very nice mix of kind of introducing this concept to the time banking community as a whole. So,
Thank you,
I'm
Mike.
excited about that. So I'll do my brief introduction as well too. Where I'm at, and what I'm bringing tonight is I've been hearing a calling to kind of enter the ministry, enter the interfaith or the interspiritual ministry. What I've been seeing a lot with interpersonal conflicts, especially with what's going on in the Middle East, especially what's going on in our political polarization. I really would like to explore being in the middle of that, and helping people talk to each other from different perspectives, whether it be different faiths, different political backgrounds, different political affiliations, just being able to be in the same room and start to find the common ground. So a little bit of my background is I've been a facilitator, lead facilitator for the Winfinity integrity pattern. It used to be called the Winfinity framework. We just call it Winfinity now, and it's an integrity pattern where some of the tenets are helping people find common ground, being dedicated to ongoing inquiry, meaning not really jumping to any conclusions, but being dedicated to asking questions and exploring. Another one is being able to release roles, representations, and positions so that you can connect human to human. So all of these things are kind of our values that we go by when we facilitate conversations with people from diverse backgrounds. So that's what I'm bringing tonight, and that's my intention as I continue to explore, time banking, the piece of living library, the piece of the interspiritual or the interfaith. So it's just an exploring. So we're learning by exploring, and that's what I'm hoping the living library will help to kind of build trust in those relationships. So that's me. That's where I'm at this moment. And if anybody has anything they would like to reflect back, please feel free to do so. And we'll go on to our second piece of tonight's meeting.
Oh, yeah, I do.
Go for it, Tony.
I'm blown away. You guys are super great, lovely people, and I don't want to wait till the end of the session. I'm going to post a link to a conference that's happening Saturday and Sunday in Madison, Wisconsin. There's a time bank organizer, a woman, Stephanie Rearick, and she's been doing this longer than I have in terms of time banking. And she created an organization called Humans United in Mutual Aid. And her attempt is to create an international network of projects, groups, efforts to use multiple forms of exchange, time banking, local money, international forms of money and exchanges. I don't want to get into all that. I just want to mention that I hope, it's going to be a free thing. And I firmly believe that one of the problems about having participation in an organization as a leader or as a member, that there's not enough bridges and connections between organizations. They have a tendency to silo themselves. And I can't pass this opportunity. I think you're going to find that comradeship, community, if you hook up or just observe and see what's going on Saturday and Sunday in Madison, Wisconsin. By the way, it is online and it is also face-to-face simultaneously. So all the details will be in that link I put up. Thanks for letting me have that moment. Thank you so much.
Cool.
Sure. No problem, Tony. I'll make sure that I also send the link out as well in an email to all of you after tonight. So that'd be great.
It's
Thank you for
kindred
sharing.
souls. We're all in this together, as they say.
Excellent. Excellent. All right. So the second piece I wanted to introduce here with the Living Library is that I have applied to be both a human book and for a license to be able to host an event through humanlibrary.org. Now, I think they're experiencing a lot of the same challenges that most nonprofits are, where they can't really get back to anyone for 6 months. And I think it's been about 3 or 4 months since I applied for that. So I wanted to make a mention of that and say that, I would like to continue to explore this further. And I'm hoping that if this recording does reach back to Denmark or reach back to anyone who is affiliated with the Human Library here in the States, that we would really like to explore that possibility with the initiators, the innovators of the concept. But one of the things I wanted to ask each of you is that if you were a human book, what would the topic be that your human book would be about? For instance, when I had applied to humanlibrary.org, I applied to be a book about being a suicide survivor. So a lot of my work right now is in the mental health industry, where we bridge the gap between mental health clinicians and mental health consumers. We call them challengers, so that we kind of create a safe space where there's a power alignment, where there is deeper trust, where people can have a deeper relationship with their mental health practitioner, and not so much about a hierarchy. So my human book would be about being a suicide survivor. I have a lot of other topics that I would love to be a human book about as well too. But I wanted to do a little brainstorm and ask each of you, what would be, your hot button topic, or what is your, what do you feel called to be a human book if someone were to go through this library and see, ooh, I want to go deeper into whatever this is about. So, so I'll give you a moment to think about that. And when you're ready to, uh-oh, there goes my background. Hey, you. My daughter just came in, and she's wreaking havoc. But so, so take a moment whenever you feel like you want to jump in. Let me know. What would be your topic? Oh, here you go. Say hi to everybody in Time Bank World.
Hi.
Here's Eloise.
Oh, she's so cute.
Yeah.
No, I forgot what I was going to say. I wanted to say something too, and I forgot what I was going to say because I so
Your
cute.
book.
Oh,
Yep, the book.
oh no, oh yeah, right. Thank you. Thanks, Tony. Okay, but the first thing I wanted to say to Mike was just thanks. I know that I think everybody knows what you do and what your work is, but to be a survivor and to help other people, I think is great. So that's just the first thing I wanted to say. The second thing is, I think my book would be called how to be an empowered, how to go from an uneducated, unaware to an empowered empath. I think that's my I think my big offer to people.
Great. So empath.
Yeah,
So
just empath.
if we're reading the book, what I had envisioned about creating the human book and the reader relationship is being able to have an appreciation conversation in Winfinity, and I'm referencing the work of Peter Block, who has 6 conversations. The first one is called a gift conversation. We call it an appreciation conversation. Is that we are the readers. Lori would be the book. And whenever you hear something that resonates with you or that you appreciate, we reflect back what we heard and what we appreciate. And if there's something that is, we're still confused about, or if there's somewhat of a dissonance or a disagreement, we ask a clarifying question. So Lori, we'll let you be the book first, and I will open it up to Tony, Charles, or Randy just to ask a question about the topic that you're introducing here as your book.
Okay.
Could we have the theme again, Lori? What the title and the subtitle of the book?
I'm gonna just make it shorter. It was way too long. just what does it mean to be an empath?
Okay.
Well, why don't you go ahead and answer that, Lori? What does it mean to be an empath?
Well, basically, I found out when I was homeschooling a girl, and the mom was a psychologist for kids who had anxiety. And she was watching me teach and tell her about my life. And she said, the reason that you didn't make it in the corporate world, right? I said, no. And she said, it's because you're an empath. I said, what is that? She said, are you the person that says yes to everything? Are you a people pleaser? Did you have trauma as a kid? Are you the person that people come to for help with everything? Do you take care of everyone else before you take care of your own needs? Do you need time for solitude? Do you have problems with relationships because you're such an emotional person and you see things and you're sensitive, much more sensitive than everybody else? So those are some of the challenges, I think, of being an empath. That's how I found out I was one. So I think if people ask me questions, it would probably be something like, what is it like living your life as someone who's so sensitive, or living with someone in your house who's so sensitive, or dating someone who's so sensitive, or what's the best career for someone who, is so sensitive and needs time alone and is an ambivert, which is a combination of extroversion and introversion. So those are the types of things I think that the chapters that people would kind of open up and ask me questions about.
Great. So
So
I
my
will ask.
question would
Go ahead,
be,
Charles.
is it something that you try to grow through, so that you're not people pleasing? That would be the chapter that I would be interested in, because
Yes.
the sensitivity can lead to, like you said, emotional and other kinds of problems. So is it something you're stuck with, or is there a recovery from being?
No, in my original title, it was so long to remember. It was like how to go from an unaware empath to an empowered one. And so the answer is, I think you're always going to be an empath. The difference is, are you unaware, or are you educated? And so that you can use what you think is a curse to actually consider it a blessing and learn techniques to protect yourself from absorbing instead of just observing the emotions of other people and taking on the emotions of other people, and learning how to say no and healing your traumas. I mean, it's a lot of work. So I think that it's a growth process. You asked, is it something also you go through, you get through? It's that too. And you've known me personally. You've seen it. I mean, you've seen me cry with you at trees. You've seen me roll off of benches because I've had back problems getting get up, right? So, yeah. So I think it's like those types of things. I think it's my thing would be techniques to get you to the educated, super empath where you're using what you have as a gift instead of a curse.
Lori, did you say you had a background in education?
I do. I have a background. I have my undergraduate degree is in organizational behavior and psychology, and my master's is in adult education. So for 30 years, I was a corporate trainer and I did comedy. I did some of my own shows myself for the things I wasn't allowed to say in corporations. And then I left the corporation and when COVID happened, it just was a crazy time. And I haven't really done that since. And I've been trying to find my place. And I finally think I found my place, which is instead of throwing the baby out with the bathwater, like use those experiences I have in organizational behavior, adult education, but in an environment like this and starting from scratch. That's what I did for other companies. They would hire me to start, a new culture, a new training program, something from scratch, something that didn't exist, fixing what's already in place.
I have sort of a follow-up question. So I assume that you have a rather objective scientific approach, analysis, operational mind. And so looking at yourself as an empath is the core of that thesis, the empath theme, is that emotional or vis-a-vis intellectual and academic. Or is it a balance? Can you talk about that?
I think my strength comes from putting things in layman's terms and just kind of real simple terms that appeal to your heart and to your mind. And there's a balance between like your wise mind and your emotional mind, and just kind of that centered place in between, because it's a spectrum. And so my goal,
that educational part now is influencing, because what you're saying is it's broader than just the emotional, it's a spectrum.
well, yeah, it is. It is. There are very different levels of this. And originally I started off with, I didn't have a thesis when I was my master's program, and I was going to go to the PhD program. And they said, you don't have a thesis. You have to go into a corporate environment. And then I said, I never had anything to study. And then I realized I have a mesis. I have a mesis in empathy for 53 years. I'm using the resources that are out there, and I'm coming up with so many other people, and I'm understanding it's more qualitative than quantitative right now. It's what people are saying that turns it into quantitative, and then using my background for statistics and science. It's also very hard for someone who comes from a background of science who also becomes spiritual and sees things that defy normal science. So I feel like as part of this process, and Mike and Charles and I are in a similar group, we've seen things that just science doesn't explain. Normal natural science doesn't explain. So there is an element to the spiritual as well.
Thanks.
Thank you. So we just got a little bit of a taste of what a living library conversation might look like.
Sorry, I think I opened the whole
No,
like,
no, Lori, brilliant, brilliant. This is precisely, what I wanted to see and explore tonight. So yeah, that's what a living library conversation really is being able to ask questions, reflecting back, what you appreciate, what resonates. So let's have another one. Randy or Tony, do you have, and it doesn't have to be your specific topic yet, but what comes up for you just in the question? What's a topic that you want to explore that you feel you have a lot to express about? You're on mute. Go ahead.
Go ahead, Randy.
I was gonna be nice to you. Okay, well then I shall. Thank you. Um, my pivot point in my life is sobriety. I have 17 years of continuous sobriety. So it would be basically, it, I think I'd like to kind of just, if I was a book, instead of the hero's journey, kind of for an alcoholic, again, without having necessarily trying to come up with something that's a marketable title. Because if you're familiar with Joseph Campbell's hero's journey and such, myself and what I've observed in others is very, very similar. And instead of trying to replicate all, which ironically, there is 12 stages in the hero's journey, and there's the 12 steps in typical recovery programs. But the final is very, very closely related. And that is, in a hero's journey, you return back to where you started with this gift. You are a different person. And it's not just for you, it is for everybody, like a better term, in the village. And that has been my story, and many, many people that I again I've observed as well, friends and people that I've mentored. But also, what's fascinating about what I think I could really bring value is, it's a cycle that repeats itself. Much as there is a catalyst to begin the journey, which commonly was referred to as hitting bottom, and I think you can be going along, and all in all, everything is going pretty good, especially comparatively than when you started it the first time. And next thing you know, I'm shedding my skin again. And here's the thing, again, it's I don't know, because the second time coming through it, I don't know if it's the proverbial like 7-year itch. Anybody's ever heard people talk about 7 years in increments of cycles for personal development? But I think there might be some data that would support this hypothesis that, okay, 7 years in, okay, there was a milestone for me. Although this was more exterior than interior, the catalyst for that was my mentor, the man who helped me really just be the guy here who I would consider the equivalent of a father. He was in the hero's journey. There's the wise guy, the wise guide you meet. Alan passed away, and my status quo of having one person that I could be fearlessly vulnerable with, and he was my confidant and mentor and such, no longer was an option, and I turned inward. I had no one that could compare to this guy that was, the guy who basically really, again, I don't want to use the word savior, but I can't think of a better one right now and stuff. And I may have at that time put him on that type of pedestal. But a mutual friend goes, "Did you ever journal?" "Yeah, I did it when I was early in sobriety and stuff. You may want to do that." And with that, I connected with a part of myself. I'd be just flow of thought, writing, journaling. And next thing you know, I'm like reading it back and going, whoa, what was that? That was not the typical train of thought that I had. It was evidence, because it happened repeatedly, that I was connecting to a deeper part of myself using this. And it was the foundation of understanding that there was within me a wellness and a wisdom that had been, I don't know, ignored, diluted, polluted, denied, stuff, that came about. And then in the next 7 years, 14 years, was another coming, and that was more an internal thing, but there was external circumstances, as though I was basically leaving the corporate world and starting my own business. And again, having new challenges, new levels, new devils kind of things. But I already have now enough experiences when I'm going into uncharted territory. I didn't need to have another human being as my wise guide. I'm fortunate that I have people that I can have for counseling, but I can get centered and connect with a part of myself. And it's far from perfect, but I can through self-inquiry and self-observation, get a much better understanding of where I'm at and where I want to go and what's happening at this moment. I can cut through my rationalization, my justification, my opinions and confirmation bias much, much quicker. And that leads up to now I'm about middle way through that right now. And where I am with this community, I think I have, not by virtue, but by circumstance, found something that has been talked about in by people that I regard as much smarter as me. So that again, guys like Joseph Campbell and Jung and others of that nature, that is like, no, this is the human condition, and this is the process of maturation, of finding a part of ourselves that has always been, and I believe again in the spiritual nature, will always exist. It's the thought behind the thought. It's beyond the intellectual. Hence why I use that word wisdom. So excuse me for rambling, but that's basically what I want to bring forth in the world. And until I've shown otherwise, that's what I plan on doing until I transition to the next phase of life.
Randy, what I love about this and what I appreciate is that, we don't have to come up with a big marketing concept or anything like that. It's just, I could spend 3 hours with you easily just finding the hero's journey out of your sobriety, because that's something that I've done a lot of study and spent a lot of time doing, is understanding Campbell's hero's journey. So I could easily spend 3 hours in a time bank, asking you questions, bringing your story back into the hero's journey. So that's something that, again, as long as it's just one person or a small group where there's that common language, I think is something that, we can spend time in a living library conversation. So, before we pass the baton to someone else in the group, would somebody like to reflect back something that you appreciate or that you resonate with what Randy said, or if you want to ask a clarifying question about what Randy just expressed. So again, we're just kind of role modeling what it might be like to be readers, with Randy being the book about sobriety and the hero's journey. I'll ask a question then. Of all of the phases of the hero's journey, Randy, which one do you feel is the most potent when it comes to your story and sobriety?
Oh, as I touched on as far as returning with a gift, that understanding that all of the things that I've encountered, as again, I use the metaphor of shedding my skin and stuff, which it's metaphor. It's not a pleasant thing. It's not anything, again, even again, out saying it out of circumstance instead of virtue and stuff. Again, I've gone through this cycle a few times and stuff. I do not volunteer for this lightly, but this second time through, I'm recognizing that there is value to it, and it's not for myself alone. And this, I think, is another thing why I feel the living library, again, the little bit I understand the concept, we share our stories, hopefully, to help someone else who can relate, again, find some similarity at first glance. And again, much like Lori talking about an empath. Oh, I'm an empath. That again, that was all enough for them to want to open up the cover and start basically reading. I think that's again the most powerful part of it is understanding that, yeah, it's, I guess how to say, there's a knowing involved with it, as I've said before. It's not intellectual. That again, it's not arrogance, and there is no need for apology of this. that I have a grounding with this now, and I can present my experience, and you can say it's poppycock. You can say I don't know, I'm the latest Messiah, guru guy, whatever and stuff. And I can be fairly neutral on it. It just is what it is. But it goes from being a conceptual thing of the unification of us energetically, the formless, again, these thoughts, these ideas that are manifested out for myself. When there is this connection, there is a synergy that happens that the best word I can think of is a healing that happens. We realize we're not alone. We realize there's reason for hope. And it's from everybody that's involved in this space. If we can listen. Now, this is I guess the key factor is with these books. It's the listening is really the potent part of this. And a listening in a way where some people, well, I did at one time, listening to learn. That was basically me trying to figure things out. So if I'm going to listen to you, I'm going to try to figure out what you're really saying, and basically that, again, when I say listening without opinions, that means I've got a preconceived end result. I'm just looking to confirm my suspicions. And a lot of times I got a pretty good imagination. I'm pretty intelligent. I can rationalize and go, oh yeah, I can tell this guy's got a kind of, I don't know, it's got a complex about this and that kind of stuff. Where if I could have a neutrality of this, and I'm not judging, this is not good, this is not bad, this is what is being presented to me, and if I can come at this with the proverbial beginner's mind, and Michael, this is what you demonstrate so much, and I want to model and emulate, is being able to really listen, not listen to learn, listen to notice. And it may sound like it's just I can't think of the exact. It's semantics. Okay, it is not. If you personally experience that time when all of a sudden you're just like, oh my god, it's almost like, I don't know, if you're reading a book for a second time or watching a movie for a second time. I missed all those details the first time through, and you're picking up something that you may not have ever picked up in any other ways. And I think that would be like another thing that I'd like to bring forth, is just to maybe get people curious enough to explore listening in this way, because that again is what's confirming my suspicion of this interconnectedness of everything and everyone.
Yeah, that could be a book topic too. Generous listening or
Yeah.
listening. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. But the gift is for everyone. It's
Mhm.
for everyone who's open for receiving it. And again, I receive from your journeys, everyone's journeys, when we take time together with the trust factor. Again, the X factor is the trust.
Mhm.
I don't have to be defensive. Hence there's no need to judge and critique and whether you're right or wrong and I agree with you or disagree with you.
Mhm.
When that can happen, there's something that's going on that's beyond my vocabulary,
Yeah.
beyond my understanding.
Yeah. Thank you, Randy. Thank you. I want to be mindful of time. We're at 8 after the hour, so I'm planning on going for another 20 minutes or so. So as we keep going, Tony or Charles, do you want to try being a book for a few minutes here with with whatever topic you feel you want to explore for the next 10 minutes or so.
Cheryl, go for it.
She might be picking up her son, actually. I think she said she was going to be stepping away for just a few minutes. So
Okay,
yeah.
well, I'll try. This is a very complicated theme.
All right.
One
I like
book, one
complicated,
book.
Tony.
If you walk in a library, you're surrounded by walls and floors and cellars of books. I don't know, where the hell do you start? Oh boy. Um, a book on a book. A book. Book. a book on climate change, a book on social breakdown, a book on economics, a book on philosophy, a book on education, a book on listening, a book on if you're in the library, you have all of the books. We have their access to them. So I think a place for me to start would be the organizing, stepping away from this question of a learning book, coming up 1,000 feet or objectifying it a little bit, is how do you go on after the book, after you're done with that book? Time, it needs to be addressed here in a way that I don't know. I'm groping with this because I don't want to. I have my own little book, but I don't want to do that. I want to talk about. I want to explore with you and
Mhm.
collaboratively create a pamphlet,
Okay.
okay, a draft book here that we have.
Hmm.
So one of the things that disturbs me about this session is that how can I stay connected to you? And have I gone too far by dumping you with my invitation to somebody else's conference, which is Saturday and Sunday, which has to do again with having the time and the connections that continue.
Hmm. That's a
Uh,
great. Hmm.
the big thing out of my experience in the shop floor and with organizing and now in community organizing is this, and I said earlier, this lack of appreciation of solidarity that we're connected. And if you talk to climate change people and philosophers of social issues, they will tell you intellectually and objectively how important it is that we're connected, that the world is not made up of this machine approach of bits and pieces where in power is controlling things. So the book here is to begin to address, as an Archimedes lever, the complexity of our relationships and being together, being triggers this to be or not to be concept that Shakespeare writes about. Uh, so uh, we have to stay connected. I would like to ask us to put your email address in this chat,
Hmm.
and I'm going to invite you to uh, my Zoom sessions on Thursdays.
Great.
After we're not doing any of them in December because of the holidays, but we need to write a new book in society. The current goddamn book is not working. Excuse my
Hmm.
French.
Hmm.
And and yes, there's these tactics that Randy talks about and that Lori talks about and Mike talks about. But what I was driven to tell you about Saturday and Sunday is Stephanie is trying to write a new book. And there's a lot of organizers and thinkers and practitioners that are trying to write a new book and that are doing it. I
Hmm.
agree with some of them and I don't agree with others of
Hmm.
them. It's just uh,
Hmm.
difficult.
May
Uh,
I say something, Tony?
yeah, sure.
Hmm. Yeah. Yeah. The way we can continue connecting is understanding the integrity pattern that is emerging here. So the first conversation that we have is an appreciation conversation, which is what we're doing, That's where trust is built. So once trust has been established, the next conversation, the next one where we go to when we all have consented to continue together is called the possibility conversation. That's where we trust each other enough to share our ideas, share with our vision with how we might be able to work together. The next phase is the invitation conversation. That's where we talk about, how do we treat each other? What are our deal breakers? What are the conditions and the preconditions, that we would like to layer in there with each other? They're conscious agreements. Then there's the dissent conversation, where a lot of people, when they're not aware of the progression of a relationship, like when they're hired to do a job or they make a commitment right away, things fall apart in the dissent, because they're trying to communicate through their ideas rather than through the values with which they agree to treat each other. And then, when we get to that dissent conversation, we start to really find out the viability of the ideas that are generated. Then there's responsibility, where everybody is collaborating equally, because the trust has been established and the invitation has been explicit. And then there's the commitment. Then there's the action, which normally flows. So my invitation at this point, since you have invited us, to continue to talk like this, to collaborate, is one possibility is Lori is actually already involved with this. We are starting a group where we do consciously follow that pattern, or we can agree to meet again at some point and kind of talk about possibility a little bit. But appreciation is a good place to be, because what we're doing is, we're creating a time banking activity group. As much time as we want to spend in here benefits the time bank. So those are some possibilities. But that's just what emerges for me. And it was you presented an opportunity for a nice segue to preview where we could go with this. But what I'm also hearing too is solidarity. Your book is about creating solidarity or reinforcing solidarity. Anyway, that's my take on it. I'd love to hear your feedback as far as what I'm hearing about what a potential book might be.
Well, it sounds like we're writing the book, okay, and that's my point. And so you've mirrored that, you harmonized with that. Thank you, Mike. And Charlotte's back, and it's 8:18. So we got just enough time, Charlotte, for you to tell us your book. What if you were a book? What would tell us? What would be the title? Or what would be the book about? What's it about?
Well, what was yours and what was Randy's? I missed those two.
Yeah. Well,
Randy was his journey in sobriety, the hero's journey in sobriety. And
Okay.
we were kind of having more of an appreciation conversation with Tony, and one of the suggestions or the invitations that came up was about solidarity, how to create solidarity. So these are something, again, these are what I also call scaffolding conversations. They don't have to be crystal clear or perfect. We're exploring relationship together. So you can start with a very vague topic, and the point is deepening relationship, not necessarily coming to a conclusion. So yeah, if there's even a topic that you just want to explore, that could be your book. So
Mine would be off the top of my head. I mean, I'm like everybody else on here. I have several things that I would like to explore, but mine would be therapy and the therapeutic alliance.
tell us more.
Well, I've had the opportunity to be in therapy and with several therapists in my life, and it always started off good, but it never ended very well. Um, And so I'm looking at that and I'm kind of like, what's that all about? And so and I've been doing a lot of reading around, therapists and therapy and the therapeutic alliance and this and that and the other thing. And, you know, um, the ability to communicate kind of really comes into play and just being in a vulnerable place. And I think that I think the healing that takes place is part of the alliance and takes place for the therapist as well as the patient. Um, and so there's a lot of misconceptions and and I noticed since COVID, everybody has a therapist, or is in some kind of, they have some kind of a counselor or some kind of a guide or some kind of, and it just is so curious to me that this whole thing has exploded into just people feeling so like they just need help. Um, and I feel like in some sense it's being exploited and kind of preying on the people who are the most vulnerable. And and so I thought, I want to look at this, and I felt like I was at one point one of those people, and I was able to grow through it and had the benefit of what I thought was a good therapist that was able to help me to become stronger in myself. Um, but I heard and I have known that, and for myself, it's not been the experience of everybody, not been the experience of a lot of people. And so, the affordability of it in the first place is so out of reach for a lot of people. So, yeah, so that would be my book.
So before I open that up to either reflection or one clarifying question, I want to say there's a natural alignment right there, Charles, with what we're doing with the bridge. So that's something that because you expressed that and because there's you're a book about that, there's I think there's natural conversations that could emerge around that within the spiritual community at Circle of Miracles, at Pebble Hill Church, at Awaken, all of these spiritually minded organizations, where we can have living library events around, again, the mental health, the intersection of the mental health and the spiritual. So yeah, that's something I just wanted to point out, that there's a natural alignment emerging there that I'm pretty excited about. All right. Any reflections or clarifying questions for Charles? All right. Well, we are at 8:23, so we're going to wrap things up. And before I do, I just want to kind of make a side note here to anyone who might be watching this within the time banking community. What you have just witnessed is an activity group. We have just role modeled a living library activity group, where we're helping each other become human books and human readers, so that each individual can kind of, create their own interactions, their own relationships that can be time banked. So, if you have any questions for me or for anyone here, please feel free to direct any questions to me. But this is how we kind of catalyze. This is how we get started being able to drive relationship exchanges, relationship-driven exchanges, where we're just establishing trust and we're establishing relationship. Now, before we end, I have two checkout questions before we go tonight. My two checkout questions, and I think Charles and Lori, and maybe even Randy, you might know what these are already. But my first question is, what did you appreciate most about our time together? And what are you most curious about exploring together in the future? If we are to meet again, what would you want to explore more with each other about? So what did you appreciate? What are you most curious about? So I'll go ahead and start, and I will pass it when I am done. What I appreciate most is how effortless and how seamless this conversation felt. I felt we role modeled the idea of a living library very well. How to start such a conversation, how to create an activity group, and really kind of painting a picture of where we can go with this. So I appreciate really the effortlessness and the flow and the natural alignment that I think we shared tonight. So what I am most curious about, or what I am curious about moving forward, is learning more about what emerges for each of you after we leave this conversation. So I want to, please encourage, the four of you, reach out to me anytime. I would love to hear, what emerges, what are your thoughts, what are your feelings that come up as a result of today's conversation. And I will pass it to Randy. Randy, what did you appreciate and what are you curious about?
Well, I did appreciate how everyone showed up, and again, they were just being, I from my listening, they were unfiltered. There was a genuineness, there was an authenticity here that is not commonly practiced, and I appreciate being in that space. What I'm curious about more, yeah, is again, the word trust has been used by me and others here tonight. It is inevitable that if we do continue this conversation, how does this authenticity, how does this genuineness evolve and expand? Does it go higher? Does it go deeper? Does it stagnate? Have we already just hit the limiter? Are we as honest as we can be and stuff? I don't know, but I'd love to see where it goes from here.
And you can pass it to anyone who has not gone yet.
I will second verse, same as the first. Tony, take the baton.
Did you say you're passing it to me?
Yes, please.
Oh, God.
Yeah.
Okay.
So appreciation and then curiosity.
Well, I don't know. Living a book, persons as books, they're the idea that you're teaching the author and the reader is learning, is sort of the event, the transaction. And the problem I have about time banking, which is that it is a model of exchanging in transaction from the student and the teacher based on commercial corporate economics. That is the damn problem out here in society. It's property based, it's hierarchical, it doesn't have a human ethos to it. And I think about what about the indigenous natives in the jungles of Brazil that are teaching the next generation of village young people. They're not exchanging dollars and coins and for passing on the wisdom that they have learned, passed on from their forefathers. My point is, this is not new, having organic, natural transmissions of education, and it's not valued in the society today, unless it's got money, unless we even look at it as a book. The people are not books, they're complex, organic. We need to respect them more, even beyond the book. It's a good idea, I like it. It's a good stepping stone to conscious development about being a good human being, a better human being, about connecting to other human beings. But I worry about if we're going to use time to record, like today, I spent an hour and a half, you spent an hour and a half. Is it a debit? Is it a credit? Where's the database at? How does this database operate? How, through time, how is this going to continue and grow to be an input or an output or part of the ecology, the social, and not only the social, but the organic reality and the physical of the trees, the weather, the plants, the animals, the environment that we're in. How do we do that?
Be with us,
So,
Tony. There's more to the story.
yeah. Okay. So I'm going
There
to
will be
shut
more.
up here. That's what is on my mind about when I come here, because I bring, I don't want to be, I don't want to say you're hierarchical and dictatorial, Michael, but I'm just going to leave it at that. But
Sure. Mhm.
thank you.
Yep. Thank you. All right. Why don't you pass it to Lori or Charles?
Sure.
Let me go to Lori. Lori, why don't you check out here? What are you appreciating and what are you curious about? And you can take yourself off mute. You're on mute, Lori. Can you, let's see here. I'll ask you to unmute. There you go.
Sorry about that. Sorry about that. Hi. Okay. So, what I appreciate the most is that for not all of us knowing each other at the same levels, the ability to still ask questions. And I think that's important. And Tony, I think it's like, I know Mike was nodding his head, just wait and see what you got. Because Mike and I have been working clearly on the background, like the FAQs of this, how's it going to work? What is an hour worth? Like, it's not hierarchical. Like all these things I know, I'm excited. So I bring enthusiasm about sending the message and about people coming with these questions and us anticipating these questions. And that's where my background comes in hand, like thinking of all these questions that people are going to ask. Well, how's this going to work? How's this going to work? And that's where we come in and do that. And so much work has been done on that. It excites me because that means I remember this information too. So it's exciting to see that, taking notes and from my transcription days, and then I remember something is so exciting. So I've been having challenges with that. So I appreciate the questions, and I'm looking forward to bringing a lot of answers.
I'm delighted to hear everybody's points of view. Let me say that. I love what we're doing. I'm very happy being amongst you. And I'm honored that Michael's invited me.
All right, Charles, you're up. What did you appreciate about tonight, and what are you curious about moving forward? And then we will close out.
Yeah, I appreciated everybody's authentic self. We showed up authentically, vulnerably, and I'm just curious about this whole idea because I don't know anything about it really. The only thing I can compare it to is I remember a woman that was doing, she had a business with people would come and barter their services. And it sounds similar to that. And, so I'm curious to see where this all goes and just glad to be a part of it. So thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Charles. And before I close out, I will leave everybody with this thought. I'll plant the seed. What we are bumping up against at the moment is the unconscious agreements that we have with authority. With what I will probably just call, let's just straight out and say it, the ruling class of this planet. But when we can take a look at the specifics of those unconscious agreements, once they become conscious, we can change that. And when we do that, we change the entire ecosystem. We change the financial system. So I'm just going to leave it at that. I'm going to plant that seed tonight. But Lori, I'm looking at you right now. You know that we're already working on that element of it. So everything in its own time. All right. Good night, everybody. Thank you very much. And Randy, I will see you tomorrow.
Good night. Thank
Good night,
you.
all.
Good night.